Karibu sana to the third hour of the Situation Room. We are very happy that you have chosen to join us and start your day with us, or end your day with us, wherever you are across the globe. If you're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook or on X or on TikTok, we are glad that you're here. If you're in the country and you're watching us on KTN News or KTN Home, asante sana. If you're listening to us on Spice FM, wewe ndio yule msee. Thank you very much. So the conversation today continues. It's Eric, and CT Ndu is a little bit under the weather, so we wish her a quick recovery. She recovers and comes in tomorrow. Now, you are thinking of going for higher education abroad, and you want to know the best universities in the UK, in Ireland, in Cyprus, in Northern Cyprus, in Germany, in Turkey, in the UAE, in New Zealand, in Australia, in USA, in Grenada. There's one place that you can get all the information about the best universities from these countries, and that place is the Cradle Study Abroad World Fair that's coming up at the end of this month, 31st of August, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Where? At the Gallant Mall in Nairobi. What will you get? What kind of information, City, will someone get there once they go?
Well, you will, first of all, you'll be able to apply to a university of your choice on the spot. You'll also be informed about scholarships. And you will require visa consultation if you wish to travel or study abroad. You will also get information on all this. But to do all this, you need to register first. It's important.
Entry is by invitation only.
Yes.
That means you register. And how do you register?
Well, what you could do, www.cradle.com. And Cradle here is CRAYDEL, okay? Or you can call, actually, and you can be given details. And the number is 0799 000 444.
0799
000 444. That's the number to
call and say, I want to register for the Cradle Study Abroad World Fair that's coming up at the end of this month. They'll tell you, okay. They'll take your details and you'll be on the list. Remember, it's the 31st of August at the Gallant Mall in Nairobi. The Gallant Mall, if you don't know where it is, Google Maps, please.
It works.
It works. It'll tell you. It's in Parklands in Nairobi. Go in there on that day between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. and you get all this information. All of it. Our next guest is seated right here in this hot seat of the Situation Room. He's Franklin Mukwanja. He's the Executive Director of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, Kenya. Franklin, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Good to have you here.
Quite chilly, but I managed.
Yeah, you did, eh?
Yeah.
Last time you were here, it was soon after the election, I think.
Shortly before election.
It was before
we were discussing the amendments.
After election, you haven't come?
No, I haven't.
Okay, now why haven't you come?
Why is it?
It is elders who determine, and the elder now determined that I should be here today.
Yeah.
So I'm here. Okay.
So elder.
This guy is applying that multi-party democracy.
Yeah. Has thrown the ball back at you. It is the elders. Hi. Karibu sana, Franklin.
Thank you so much.
Now, we have a message for you from the Aga Khan University Hospital about home care services. And they talk about recovering. Recovering at home should not be a sacrifice in quality care. That's why Aga Khan University Hospital has brought specialized quality care closer to you through our home care services. The team of highly qualified and dedicated staff ensure that you receive the same high quality care that you get at the hospital from the comfort of your home. From doctor visits, nursing care, physiotherapy, chemotherapy, wound nursing, and many more. They ensure that your care continues uninterrupted from home. Have you heard any other facility that's offering all this kind of service? And saying you can actually go home and recuperate from home. A doctor will visit you. You'll have nurses visiting you. If you need physiotherapy, physiotherapists will come. If you need chemotherapy, we can. If it's wounds and you need a wound to be treated and managed, we will send people. So you don't have to really think, now that I've been told you have been discharged from this bed, they have dumped you.
I think it's a quite good innovation in my view, because hospitals are not just for treating diseases, they're also a place where many diseases are found, especially for children. You take in your child for a flu, they come out with what is it called?
Flu plus.
The rotavirus. And that. So if they can recover at home, much better. So I think it's quite noble.
Yep. It's a good thing because then now you don't have to, you feel that you're within the comfort of your home.
Correct.
Which helps you the recovery journey.
Yeah.
And it reduces the bill of having to pay for the bed. And you're thinking, people have to come and visit me, visiting hours, do what. Now you're at home.
Yeah, and also a meal of your choice.
And a meal of your choice.
Yeah.
And then they'll still offer you that support. Sure. That's why the Kenya University Hospital is saying, we're here, we got you. City, patie bwana multi-party, a multi-party proverb.
A democratic proverb.
A democratic proverb.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the Republic of Chad. The palm tree that encourages birds to nest in it should not cry over shattered leaves.
A palm tree that encourages birds to nest in it should not cry over shattered leaves.
Yes.
This proverb is from Chad. And it told us Chad has several geographical features.
Chad has actually very interesting geographical features. Within Chad, you find a part of the Sahara Desert. Within Chad, you find the Sahel, somewhere towards the middle. Within Chad, you find what we call the Sudanese savanna. And then there's Lake Chad, which is the second largest wetland in Africa. And then Chad has 200 ethnic groups.
Multi-ethnic, multi-party.
Multi-terrestrial.
Multi-everything.
Multi-everything.
Interesting country, this.
Yes. What's your interpretation of that proverb?
I think the palm tree invited the birds, so choices have consequences. Someone said so. Yeah. Choices have consequences.
Yeah. You're the one who invited the birds.
Yeah.
And then now they come. When you get broken leaves.
Yes, please.
You actually know why you got broken leaves, don't you?
Yeah. It's the visitors that you invited.
Yes.
You invite visitors.
Yeah.
And you get broken leaves.
Sounds like other invitations we've seen lately across the political aisle. Yeah. Yes.
Now, and we when we were saying that you're going to be coming this morning, we said, CMD is actually a body that brings in very many political parties together, right? How many members are there? How many member political parties do you have?
We have, the way our membership is determined is after every election. So after every election, we look at the performance of the parties. And a party that has at least 5 elected members of county assembly or any other one-seat member of National Assembly, woman rep, governor, senator, or the president is allowed. We have such 29 political parties who qualify and merit to be our members. But
so 29 political parties have at least one elected representative somewhere.
Yes, or 5 elected MCAs somewhere. And out of those, we have maintained between 19 and 24 since the last general election. Yeah.
Of course, the big parties in Azimio are your members.
Yes,
presumably.
And even in Kenya Kwanza.
And even in Kenya Kwanza, they're members. Now, what we're seeing now is a lot of this, political pull and push, or push and pull, however you want to approach it. And we're wondering, so what's happening to our political party democracy? The Constitution says that Kenya shall be a political party democracy, right? That we shall encourage political parties to actually be vibrant and have different opinions and ideologies that then push forward our democracy. Senor?
Yeah.
Are we living according to the ideals of the Constitution, strictly speaking?
Strictly speaking, we are yet to get there. But the journey for multi-party democratic development is not an easy one. Forming, maintaining, sustaining political parties is not an easy job. It's not running a corporate or a CSO or a religious group. It is about opinions and interests that must be, refreshed every time. But our major undoing, in my view, is that while we have a good policy, legal, and even constitutional framework to enable us have proper political institutions, we have a challenge of our poor political culture. And that is on both ends of the divide. You have generally a citizenry that favors social welfare dispensation at the cost of proper political, dispensation in terms of making sure that political parties have policy propositions, making sure that political parties actually have the necessary intra-party democracy and develop the necessary systems, structures, and people in those structures for proper politics. When you look at the interface between elected leaders and the citizens, it is largely a transactional conversation and not a debate over issues and what different candidates prefer as solutions to societal challenges. Leaders are elected and elected based on their abilities to, participate in social welfare issues. My wife has given birth, and some of these births are akin to Katumani. 3 months, every 3 months, you're seeing a gentleman coming, my wife is expectant, and I need to discharge them. And the issues of when I was driving here, I kept on hearing about the funding model, of the universities. And that is why politicians are keen to control some of these funds, be it the ward fund, be it the constituency development fund, be it the national gender affirmative action fund. Even senators are asking for the oversight fund. And if you look at it keenly, Eric, you realize that it's about their capability to be able to interface with those social welfare dispensation. And that poor political culture is the main underlying issue. Look at the issue of voter bribery, a very basic issue in terms of our election conduct. But it's almost normalized that if you do not... it's actually normalized.
Thank you.
Yeah. A few of those have stood their ground and not. And today, they are not even asking that if City is the candidate, that Eric is the middleman and will give. They have discovered that Eric will run away with part of the share and want City, the candidate, to hand over directly. And these issues make our politics untidy. And therefore, politicians, when they go in there, that's why they are interested in pleasing the government of the day, pleasing the president, to be able to derive something out of it to go back and share with their people, as opposed to really representing and oversighting.
Am I hearing you, Frank, saying that the citizen bears the bigger burden of blame here? That we are not... Because the question was whether we are living according to the ideals of the Constitution.
I was just prosecuting on the one side. And remember, I said there are two sides. Yes.
This side appears to be having a lot of weight. Let's hear the other side.
Yeah, so I had actually shifted the gear to the other side. That now when you look at the conduct of the members of parliament largely, the way parliamentary business is conducted in House committees, you have had reports about, members of parliament not being keen on the oversight role, but when they invite the people that they should be questioning about particular issues, the issues of bribery. And that tells you that the source of money is to enable them to do their bidding. And then the issue of the funds, as I have mentioned, the courts have ruled and declared that these funds are illegal. But there is an insistence by the political class to maintain these funds. And the question is why? Because voters, again, only look at their leaders not from the frame of how they are performing their duties in terms of legislation, not in terms of how they are oversighting, not in terms of how they are representing their issues, but in terms of how they can be able to give tangible physical things. And that is a misnomer in the social contract that we have in our politics.
I find something interesting here, and I'm really glad you brought this up in the way that you've done, because you've enabled me to look at this thing in a way I'd never looked at it before. Here you have a bunch of people who are elected to represent others. They are the ones who decide they are going to conduct their affairs by introducing bribery, which in an earlier time didn't really exist. Most people who got voted in were either strong church members of the local church. If you are in certain part of Western Kenya, you're a Quaker, or you belong to some Pentecostal church, or AIC, or Anglican. The values that were considered to be important in a leader were not money, but the person whom the community thought they were. So this group introduces money. But there's something else that they also do. They also decide that this job, the primary interest is going to be how much money they can make. So this social dishing out of money that you mentioned, it is always presented again by these very people who give the money as something that is demanded. And what is lost in the conversation is who started the giving. It didn't start with the demand from the public, did it?
It was the offers.
They offered, they saw and understood this would be a lovely inducement. Now it grew. And why did it grow? Because they then offered more money. And then it got to a point where it was ridiculous amounts of money. And that's where what you said comes in. Where does a ridiculous amount of money come in? If you happen to be in a committee that deals with X, Y, Z, those committee meetings deal with money. There are many things they discuss, but at the end of the day, these many things involve expenditure of money in one way or the other. Or someone comes in there because somewhere along the line they were supposed to have managed that money in a particular way, and they choose to, instead of going left, to go right. And they were told to go right, then they went up instead of down. So money is involved. So this cabal, this class of people now become businessmen. But how they justify the business of taking money which is actually meant for the citizenry is they take it and then they pretend they give all of it to the citizen, which they don't. They give part of it. And they also increase salaries so that we become one of the highest paid parliaments on the planet, not just on this particular continent. Yes, indeed, there is a contract. That contract was queued such a long time ago that there's a generation that don't even know that there was a time when it was people did not give bribes. They have grown up knowing bribery is how politics is conducted. That was not the contract we signed with these people. We signed a contract that required them to actually ensure that all the services that are due to us are provided. But they actually continuously and consistently determined that that is not what they're going to do. So this discussion is always confused. Did the chicken come before the egg? No, actually, it wasn't the chicken, it was a duck. No. It was a swan. No. It was a goose. They're all avian. Yes, but the chicken came before the egg. No. The chicken was born out of the egg. And so we get into this conversation all the time while their business continues unabated. They are still taking money which they shouldn't take. They are still ensuring that their interest is taken care of first. And the reason why, as you say, GCDF becomes important is because that is where they claim that they're assisting. And we forget, it's still our money, for heaven's sake. It's not as though it's some gift they've gotten for us.
Yeah. And I agree with you, City, because if you look at our politics prior to 1992, there is very little money. And in fact, the campaign at 1992 is a lot more about campaigning big money in politics. But then it is 32 years that we've been at this. It's actually, we're cultured to look at that. And sometimes I ask this, what is the actual problem? Is it that the politician must give something when they come into contact with their voters? Or is it that a voter is generally inclined to vote for a generous and wealthy but generous person, so that they continue giving? And this is an issue that we have to address. And if you look at it keenly, it gives you the answer as to why for the last, I think 2013, 17, and 20, for the last three general elections, we have had a campaign, an election campaign financing act. Since 2012, when it was enacted, it has not been You know, and if you look at Article 88(4)(I) of the Constitution, it actually speaks to this function of the IEBC of regulating campaign financing. But that conversation will never go anywhere. If you go into public participation about election campaign financing, you will not find reasonable conversations. When you go to Parliament, there is every reason to stop the implementation of that particular piece of legislation. So our society must be able to reflect, and if there is a question of how to fix our multi-party democracy to a modern democracy, to a standard and a culture and practice that we would want, then we have to address the issue of illicit money in our politics, because it begins, yes, with the demand by the voters, but then what would be the reason for a member of county assembly to invest 15 to 20 million into a campaign? What would be the reason for a member of parliament to invest 100 million shillings for a campaign when their salary is barely half of that? They have ways to raise, to recover, make the deficit of 40 million, and also make some more for the next campaign.
It means that electoral politics then becomes a business.
It is a business.
So
it's a transaction.
So you've invested to get there. So once you get there, now you are trying to extract as much value out of it.
Yes.
So when you see these political leaders running and trooping to be in government, they're looking to extract as much, because you'll extract the most when you're in the executive.
Yes, because there are the opportunities. And you have had, and the question I've seen was whether ODM is going to help Kenya Kwanza deliver on its manifesto. And my answer is, let's wait and see. Because if you look at the gentlemen and lady that have been appointed, we can give the benefit of doubt. If I start with the Honorable John Badi, 15 years in Parliament, a professional accountant, the second degree in strategic management, has been minority leader, sat on various committees. This is someone, and his personality is that we understand that he wants to stand his ground. So if it is indeed about his capability and merit, he actually merits for the job. And if you look at the Governor of Paranya, Governor Joho, and the rest, they have some credentials that they bring into this job.
Really?
But the way, in my view,
Just
if you look
at merit
this,
level,
at
in terms
the
of
basic
qualification, do they
Yes.
qualify for the job?
The qualification that you mentioned aren't really the qualification. Not really. I mean, what is the basic requirement for someone to be a cabinet secretary?
I mean, you serve at the discretion of the president.
Precisely. Do you need paper qualification? Do you need to have gone to any school of note? What do you need to
But
do?
you are in a very high-level policy making
I am in full
position.
agreement. I'm in full
All
agreement.
right? And I'm just looking at Honorable
those ones.
Badi's.
You need higher level education. You need university.
Yeah, I'm looking at Honorable Badi's experience.
Yes, I've understood all that. I'm simply asking, according to our laws, according to the Constitution, what is the requirement of a CS if we have a requirement? What is the educational requirement of a CS?
Do
Do we have it written down?
We do not have it expressly written down, in my view,
That's why it is at the discretion and the pleasure
of the president.
Okay, exactly.
Yes.
And the other qualification, you need to be a politician, isn't it?
Not necessarily.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We talk about people who would be coming from, say, the corporate world, but you must know this person who is electing you, which means you've been involved in politics. That's why I say you need to be a politician. You don't need to be a card-carrying somebody who has vied for a seat, but you need to be in that mix.
You need to be a political player.
Yes, you need to be in that mix. So those, in my opinion, are the qualifications. This thing, whether you went to school or not, secondary.
Well, look, you see, we're looking at a CS for National Treasury that can be able to lift this country from the doldrums that is in economically to a level that we're saying we're out of the woods and we're progressing. And possibly if Raila Odinga is honest that the president tapped and
His best.
we gave the experts from ODM.
Why do we use the word honesty when referring to politicians? You know, this thing really puzzles me. Eric, perhaps you can help me here. Here we are talking about politics. We're
Must
talking about
politics
politicians.
is honest.
No. the Kenyan politician, by definition, is dishonest. The challenge is to show me one who is honest. I'm sure they exist, because there are always exceptions to the rule.
You know, we can have different definitions of honesty, yeah? Honestly speaking.
Kusema ule ukweli.
Yani the
Ule ukweli wa Mungu.
We can define honesty in different ways.
Yes.
Now, in the Kenyan context of politics and honesty, it's different from many other contexts of politics and honesty. So don't apply a different grade here. Okay, apply the grade that applies.
Let me descend to the level that we are at.
Yeah,
isn't it okay? To the nice murky levels of honesty that we as Kenya like to sort of like roll in.
So as Franklin said, if Raila Odinga was honest,
was honest enough, and I think if I just use the example of the most important portfolio that they have, and that's the treasury. It's been given to an individual that has the academic part of it, has the legislative and the political experience part of it. But my challenge is that the level of control that they will be demanded may not give them the latitude to be able to do their job in a good way. And that is the worry that we have. What are the reasons that ODM possibly joined Kenya Kwanza? It may not be for reasons to implement the manifesto. But in my view, it is for the reasons. And yesterday, if I read the statement that ODM is synonymous to protests, to me, it sounded like they have an entitlement to protests, including the Gen Z-driven protests. And therefore, they fear that their forte was being taken away from them, made it possible and easy, in my view, for them to have an elite settlement and join government so that they can steady the nation. And I think if it's a manifesto of steadying the nation, I think that has been realized. The rest, it's a wait and see. And I have little confidence in it, because if you listen, if anything that has to be trusted away from Raila, and if Raila actually has to be believed that he speaks largely through his henchmen, then when we see what Atandi and the others have said about this government only being bad because our people are not inside, then we have the answer already. That the initial intention of joining government was not actually to help in realizing. And if you look at even our setup, we are a minority. We are a presidential system with the recognition of a minority. Legally, there is nothing you can hold against ODM for joining the Kenya Kwanza side.
Hold on. We'll come and discuss that shortly. It's 25 minutes to 9. Franklin Mukwanja is the Executive Director of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy in Kenya. We are looking at what we've seen in the politics recently. So ODM joining Kenya Kwanza administration, end of Azimio near as partners fight it out. That's a headline in the Standard this morning. The Standard in the Nation today is saying Raila snubs Uhuru talks.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your...
Hey, Baba Boy. Gas imeisha.
When I have back pain,